Keanu Reeves invites his ex-girlfriend to his wedding, and she arrives with a young man identical to him. The sun-drenched coast of Malibu was abuzz with excitement. Paparazzi lined the streets, their cameras poised to capture what promised to be the wedding of the decade. Keanu Reeves, Hollywood's beloved action star and internet's favorite nice guy, was about to tie the knot with Scarlett Vaughn, the acclaimed director who had stolen his heart. The air was electric with anticipation. As black limousines rolled up to the entrance of the luxurious Malibu Dream Resort, each one disgorging a fresh crop of A-list celebrities. Inside the resort's grand ballroom, Keanu adjusted his bow tie for the umpteenth time, his usually calm demeanor betraying a hint of nervousness. At 59, he still cut a dashing figure in his tailored tuxedo, his salt-and-pepper beard neatly trimmed for the occasion. He gazed out the window at the crowd gathering below, a mix of emotions swirling in his dark eyes. "You okay there, big guy?" asked his best man, John Wick co-star Ian McShane, clapping him on the shoulder. Keanu turned, offering a lopsided grin. "Yeah, just taking it all in, you know. Never thought I'd see the day." Ian chuckled. "Well, it's about damn time. Scarlett's a keeper." As if on cue, there was a gentle knock at the door. Keanu's assistant, Emily, poked her head in. "Mr. Reeves, they're ready for you downstairs." Keanu nodded, taking a deep breath. He followed Emily out into the hallway, the plush carpet muffling their footsteps. As they descended the grand staircase, Keanu couldn't help but marvel at the transformation of the resort. White roses and twinkling lights adorned every surface, creating a fairy tale atmosphere that seemed at odds with his usual low-key style. But this was what Scarlett wanted, and he'd move heaven and earth to make her happy. Before we continue with Keanu's journey to the altar, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining us on this emotional ride. If you're enjoying the story so far, please consider subscribing to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts and where you're tuning in from in the comments below. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's get back to Keanu's big day. The ballroom was a sea of designer, gowns and tailored suits. Keanu recognized faces from every corner of Hollywood. Directors he'd worked with, co-stars from his many blockbusters, and even a few surprised fans who'd won contests to attend. As he made his way to the altar, he exchanged nods and smiles with friends like Sandra Bullock, Lawrence Fishburne, and Winona Ryder. But there was one face he was both eager and anxious to see: Eleanor Hayes. His stomach did a little flip at the thought of her. It had been Scarlett's idea to invite her, a gesture of confidence in their relationship. "Your past is part of who you are," she'd said, "and I love all of you, Keanu." He'd agreed, touched by her trust, but now he wondered if it had been the right decision. Eleanor had been more than just an ex-girlfriend. She was the one who got away, the what-if that had lingered in the back of his mind for over 2 decades. Their whirlwind romance in the early days of his career had been intense, passionate, and ultimately heartbreaking. She disappeared from his life so suddenly, leaving him with unanswered questions and a void that took years to fill. As Keanu took his place at the altar, his eyes scanned the crowd, searching for Eleanor. He told himself it was just curiosity, nothing more. After all, he was about to marry Scarlett, the woman who had brought light back into his life after years of solitude. The string quartet began to play, and the guests rose to their feet. Keanu's heart raced as the doors at the back of the ballroom opened. Scarlett appeared, a vision in white, her red hair cascading over her shoulders. She began her walk down the aisle, her eyes locked on Keanu's, a radiant smile on her face. For a moment, everything else faded away. Keanu saw only Scarlett, felt only the love that had grown between them over the past 5 years. She was his rock, his partner in every sense of the word. As she reached him and took his hands, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The ceremony was a blur of emotion. Keanu and Scarlett exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises of love, support, and adventure. As they sealed their union, with a kiss, the ballroom erupted in applause. Confetti rained down, and for a perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. But as Keanu and Scarlett turned to face their guests, a commotion near the back of the room caught his attention. The crowd parted, and there she was, Eleanor Hayes, as beautiful as he remembered, her blonde hair now streaked with elegant strands. Hair of silver, but she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a young man, no more than 20 years old. As the pair made their way closer, Keanu felt the blood drain from his face. The young man was his spitting image, same height, same chiseled jawline, same penetrating gaze. It was like looking at a photo of himself from the Speed era. Scarlett, sensing the change in Keanu's demeanor, followed his gaze. Her grip on his hand tightened as she too saw the uncanny resemblance. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Eleanor approached, a serene smile on her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Congratulations, Keanu," she said, her voice as melodious as he remembered. "It's been a long time." Keanu struggled to find his voice. "Eleanor, I thank you for coming." Her smile widened as she gestured to the young man beside her. "I'd like you to meet my son, Noah Hayes." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Keanu stared at Noah, unable to process what he was seeing. The young man met his gaze unflinchingly, a hint of a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Reeves," Noah said, extending his hand. "I've been a fan of your work for as long as I can remember." Keanu shook, Noah's hand automatically, his mind reeling. The similarity was undeniable. The same deep voice, the same mannerisms. How was this possible? He'd always been careful, always responsible. But the timing, it fit. The sudden end to his relationship with Eleanor, her disappearance. Scarlett's voice cut through his thoughts. "It's lovely to meet you both," she said, her tone perfectly controlled, despite the tension Keanu could feel radiating from her. "Thank you for sharing our special day with us." Eleanor nodded graciously. "We wouldn't have missed it." "Come, Noah, let's find our seats." As they moved away, Keanu felt like he was underwater. The sounds of the reception faded to a dull roar. He was vaguely aware of Scarlett leading him towards the head table, of guests approaching to offer congratulations. But it all felt distant and unreal. His eyes kept drifting back to Noah, who seemed completely at ease mingling with the Hollywood elite. The young man laughed at something Charlize Theron said, his smile a perfect mirror of Keanu's own. "Keanu," Scarlett whispered urgently, squeezing his hand. "Keanu, look at me." He turned to his new wife, seeing the concern and confusion in her eyes. "I don't know," he said, answering her unasked question. "I swear, Scarlett, I had no idea." She searched his face for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Okay, we'll figure this out, together." Her words were reassuring, but Keanu could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. As the reception got into full swing, Keanu went through the motions, greeting guests, posing for photos, sharing the first dance with Scarlett. But his mind was elsewhere, grappling with the bombshell that had been dropped into the middle of what should have been the happiest day of his life. He couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor was watching him, her gaze boring into him from across the room. When he finally managed to catch her eye, she simply raised her champagne glass in a silent toast, that enigmatic smile still playing on her lips. The questions swirled in Keanu's mind, each one more pressing than the last. Was Noah really his son? Why had Eleanor kept this from him for so long? And why choose this moment, his wedding day, to reveal the truth? As the night wore on, Keanu found himself by the bar knocking back a shot of tequila. He rarely drank, but tonight seemed to call for it. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice Noah approaching until the young man was right beside him. "Quite a party," Noah said, his voice startlingly familiar. "Though I imagine it's not going quite as you planned." Keanu turned to face him, really looking at him for the first time. It was like gazing into a mirror of the past. "Noah," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I think you and I need to talk." Noah nodded, a spark of something, anticipation. Nervousness in his eyes. "I've been waiting 20 years for this conversation, Mr. Reeves, or should I call you Dad?" The word hit Keanu like a physical blow. He gripped the bar for support, his knuckles turning white. I'm not, he stammered, then took a deep breath. "Let's find somewhere quiet." As they made their way out to the terrace, Keanu caught Scarlett's eye across the room. She was deep in conversation with some studio executives, but he could see the concern etched on her face. He gave her what he hoped was a reassuring nod before stepping out into the cool night air with Noah. The sounds of the party faded as they walked to the edge of the terrace, the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretching out before them. For a long moment neither spoke, both men staring out at the darkness. Finally, Keanu broke the silence. "Noah, I need you to understand something. I had no idea. If I had known—" Noah held up a hand, cutting him off. "I know," he said softly. "Mom told me everything. Well, almost everything. There's still a lot she won't say." Keanu's head snapped around. "What do you mean? What did she tell you?" Noah turned to face him, his expression a mix of emotions Keanu couldn't quite decipher. "She told me that you two were in love once, upon a time, that things were complicated, that she left to protect both of us." He paused, his gaze intense. "But she never told me why she kept me a secret from you all these years." Keanu's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of the past. "Noah, I don't know what to say. This is all so sudden. I never imagined that you had a son." Noah finished for him, a hint of bitterness creeping into his voice. "Yeah, well, surprise." The weight of 2 decades of missed moments crashed down on Keanu. First steps, first words, first day of school, all gone, never to be reclaimed. The enormity of it threatened to overwhelm him. "I'm sorry," he said, the words feeling wholly inadequate. "I'm so sorry, Noah. If I had known—" Noah's expression softened slightly. "I believe you," he said, "but it doesn't change the fact that I grew up without a father, that I watched your movies, followed your career, always wondering what it would be like to know you." Keanu felt a lump forming in his throat. "I want to know you, Noah. If you'll let me. I know it's too late to be the father you needed growing up, but maybe—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. How could he possibly make up for 20 years of absence? Noah was quiet for a long moment, considering. "I'd like that," he said finally. "But there's something else you should know. Something Mom wouldn't tell me, but I think you have a right to know." Keanu braced himself, wondering what other revelations this night could possibly hold. "What is it?" Noah took a deep breath. "I don't think I'm your biological son, at least not in the traditional sense." Keanu felt as if the ground had fallen out from beneath him. He gripped the terrace railing, his knuckles turning white. "What do you mean, not in the traditional sense?" he managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. Noah ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Keanu's heart ache. "I've done some digging over the years," he explained. "Mom's always been evasive about the details of my conception, but I found some old medical records and they don't add up. There's mention of a procedure, something experimental." Keanu's mind raced, trying to make sense of this new information. "Experimental? Noah, what are you saying?" The young man turned to face the ocean, his profile etched against the moonlight. I think I might have been created in a lab, using your genetic material, but not through traditional means." He paused, his voice dropping low. "I don't think Mom ever actually gave birth to me." The revelation hit Keanu like a physical blow. He stumbled back, nearly losing his footing. That's impossible," he stammered. "How could that even happen?" Noah shrugged, a wry smile playing at his lips. "Welcome to my world. I've been trying to figure this out for years, but every time I confront Mom about it, she shuts down. All she'll say is that she did what she had to do to protect me. And you." Keanu's head was spinning. He thought back to his time with Eleanor, trying to recall any hint, any clue that might explain this bizarre situation. But all he could remember was the whirlwind romance, the passion, and then the abrupt, inexplicable end. "Noah," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "I swear to you I had no idea. If what you're saying is true, it was done without my knowledge or consent." The young man nodded, his expression softening. "I believe you. And for what it's worth, I don't blame you. I needed you to know the truth, or at least as much of it as I've been able to piece together." They stood in silence for a long moment, the sounds of the reception drifting out to them on the night air. Keanu's mind was a whirlwind of questions, each one more pressing than the last. But before he could voice any of them, a familiar voice cut through the darkness. "I see you two have finally met," Eleanor said, stepping out onto the terrace. She was as elegant as ever, her poise unshakable even in the face of the chaos she had unleashed. Keanu turned to her, a storm of emotions raging within him. "Eleanor," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "I think you owe us both an explanation." She met his gaze unflinchingly, a sad smile playing at her lips. "Oh, Keanu, there's so much you don't understand, so much I've tried to protect you from." "Protect me?" Keanu's voice rose, his legendary calm finally cracking. "By keeping my son from me for 20 years, by whatever it is you've done." Eleanor held up a hand, her expression grave. "Not here," she said, glancing back towards the reception. "This isn't a conversation for prying eyes and ears. Meet me tomorrow, both of you. I'll tell you everything." Noah stepped forward, his jaw set in a determination that was painfully familiar to Keanu. "No more games, Mom. No more secrets. We deserve the truth." Eleanor's composure faltered for just a moment, a flash of vulnerability crossing her face. "You're right," she said softly. "You both deserve the truth, but not here, not now. This is Keanu's wedding day. Let him have this night." Keanu laughed bitterly. "Have this night? Eleanor, you've turned my world upside down. How am I supposed to go back in there and pretend everything's fine?" "You're an actor, aren't you?" Eleanor said, a hint of her old spark returning. "Put on a show, for Scarlett's sake, if nothing else." The mention of Scarlett's name was like a bucket of cold water. Keanu's shoulders sagged as the reality of his situation crashed down on him. His new wife was inside, probably wondering where he'd disappeared to on their wedding night. "Fine," he said, his voice tight. "Tomorrow. But I want answers, Eleanor, all of them." She nodded, relief evident in her eyes. "Tomorrow, then. I'll text you the details." She turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Noah. "Are you coming?" Noah hesitated, glancing between his mother and Keanu. I think I'll stay a bit longer, if that's okay." Eleanor's expression was unreadable as she nodded. "Of course, I'll see you later." With that, she glided back into the reception, leaving Keanu and Noah alone once more. The two men stood in awkward silence, the weight of their newfound connection hanging heavy between them. Finally, Keanu spoke. "Listen, Noah, I know this is all complicated, but I meant what I said earlier. I want to know you, if you'll let me." Noah's smile was tentative, but genuine. "I'd like that. But maybe we should start small. How about a coffee sometime this week, after whatever happens tomorrow?" Keanu nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. "Coffee sounds good. I'd like that." As they made their way back to the reception, Keanu's mind was already racing, ahead to the next day, wondering what revelations awaited him. But for now he had a role to play, the happy groom celebrating the start of a new life with Scarlett. The moment they stepped back into the ballroom, Scarlett was at his side, her smile strained but still radiant. "There you are," she said, slipping her arm through his. "I was starting to worry." Keanu pressed a kiss to her temple, trying to convey all his love and apology in that simple gesture. "I'm sorry, honey, I just needed some air." Scarlett's gaze flicked to Noah, curiosity and apprehension warring in her eyes. "And who's this?" Noah extended his hand, his charm on full display. "Noah Hayes. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Reeves. I'm a huge fan of your work." As Scarlett shook Noah's hand, Keanu could see the wheels turning in her mind. She was too smart not to notice the resemblance, too intuitive not to sense the tension. But to her credit, she maintained her composure, every inch the gracious hostess. "It's lovely to meet you, Noah. I hope you're enjoying the reception." Noah nodded, his smile easy and natural. "It's beautiful. You two make a stunning couple." Scarlett's grip on Keanu's arm tightened almost imperceptibly. "Thank you. If you'll excuse us, I think it's time for us to make the rounds. Enjoy the rest of the evening." As they moved away, Keanu could feel Scarlett's questioning gaze on him, He knew they would have to talk, and soon. But for now, he focused on the task at hand, greeting guests and accepting congratulations with as much enthusiasm as he could muster. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Keanu went through the motions, cutting the cake, tossing the bouquet, sharing dances with Scarlett and various friends and family members. But his mind was elsewhere, caught between the joy of his marriage and the earth-shattering revelations of the evening. As the reception wound down and guests began to depart, Keanu found himself once again face to face with Eleanor. She was preparing to leave, Noah at her side. "Congratulations again, Keanu," she said, her voice soft. "You and Scarlett seem very happy together." Keanu nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Eleanor leaned in, kissing him lightly on the cheek. As she did, she whispered, "I'm sorry for the timing, but you'll understand tomorrow. I promise." Before he could respond, she was gone, disappearing into the crowd with Noah in tow. Keanu watched them go, a mix of emotions churning in his gut. Finally, as the last of the guests departed, Keanu and Scarlett found themselves alone in their honeymoon suite. The tension that had been building all night finally broke. "All right," Scarlett said, kicking off her heels and fixing Keanu with a determined stare. "What the hell is going on, Keanu? Who is that boy, and why does he look exactly like you?" Keanu sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly feeling every one of his 59 years. "Scarlett, I don't know how to explain this. I'm not even sure I understand it myself." He told her everything, about his relationship with Eleanor all those years ago, about Noah's appearance at the wedding, and about the bizarre claims of his origins. As he spoke, Scarlett's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and finally, a deep concern. When he finished, she sat beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Oh, Keanu," she said softly, "what are we going to do?" He squeezed her hand, grateful beyond words for her support. "I don't know, but whatever happens, we'll face it together, right?" Scarlett nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Together, always." As they sat there, the weight of the day finally catching up with them, Keanu's mind drifted to the meeting tomorrow. What would Eleanor reveal? How would it change his life? And more importantly, how would it affect his new marriage? The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil in Keanu's heart. He and Scarlett had agreed that she would stay behind while he met with Eleanor and Noah. "This is something you need to do on your own," she'd said. "But I'll be here when you get back." The address Eleanor had sent led him to a quiet cafe in Venice Beach, far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. As he parked his motorcycle and removed his helmet, Keanu spotted them sitting at an outdoor table, both nursing cups of coffee. Taking a deep breath, he approached, his heart pounding in his chest. Eleanor looked up as he neared, a sad smile playing at her lips. "Keanu," she said softly, "thank you for coming." He nodded, taking the empty seat between them. A waiter appeared almost immediately, and Keanu ordered a black coffee, needing the caffeine to steady his nerves. "All right, Eleanor," he said once. The waiter had departed. "You promised us answers. Start talking." Eleanor took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly around her mug. "It all started about 21 years ago," she began. "Do you remember that charity event we attended together? The one for genetic research?" Keanu frowned, casting his mind back. "Vaguely. What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything," Eleanor said, "because that's where I met Dr. Adrian Foster. He was brilliant, charismatic, and completely obsessed with the idea of genetic preservation." As Eleanor spoke, the pieces began to fall into place. Dr. Foster had approached her, fascinated by Keanu's genetic makeup. He had a theory that certain individuals possessed optimal genes, and he wanted to study Keanu's DNA. "I thought it was harmless," Eleanor said, her voice thick with regret. "Just a simple blood test. I convinced you to do it, remember?" Keanu nodded slowly, the memory surfacing. "Yeah, I do. You said it was for a good cause." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Keanu. I had no idea what he was really planning." She went on to explain how, weeks later, Dr. Foster had contacted her in secret. He had used Keanu's genetic material to create embryos, part of an unauthorized experiment in human cloning. He was going to destroy them, Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't let that happen, so I agreed to carry one to term. Keanu felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. He looked at Noah, seeing him in a whole new light. So you're my clone? Noah nodded, his expression a mix of emotions. Genetically, yes. But I'm my own person, Keanu. I've lived my own life, had my own experiences. Eleanor reached out, laying a hand on Keanu's arm. I wanted to tell you, so many times, but I was afraid of what it would do to your career, to your life. And then you became this huge star and it seemed impossible. Keanu's mind was reeling. He had so many questions, so many emotions battling for dominance. But one thought rose above the rest. Why now? He asked, his voice hoarse. Why choose my wedding day to reveal all this? Eleanor and Noah exchanged a glance and Keanu felt his heart sink. There was more. Of course there was more. Because, Noah said slowly, Dr. Foster is back, and he wants to go public with the whole story. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Keanu felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him once again. Go public? He repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean? Eleanor's grip tightened on her coffee cup, her knuckles turning white. Dr. Foster has been persistent. He believes that the world needs to know about his breakthrough. He's written a book detailing the entire experiment, including your involvement. Keanu's mind raced, trying to process the implications. His entire life, his career, his newly minted marriage, all of it could come crashing down if this information got out. But I didn't know, he said, his voice rising with a hint of panic. I didn't consent to any of this. Noah leaned forward, his expression grave. We know that, Keanu. But Foster doesn't care. He sees this as his legacy, his claim to scientific immortality. He's been threatening to release the book for months now. Which is why we're here, Eleanor added softly. We needed to tell you before it all explodes. In the media. You deserve to hear it from us first. Keanu ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of 2 decades of secrets bearing down on him. So what do we do? He asked, looking between Eleanor and Noah. How do we stop this? Eleanor shook her head, a look of resignation on her face. I don't think we can stop it entirely. Foster is determined, but we might be able to control the narrative. If we come forward first on our own terms, own. No, Keanu said firmly, surprising even himself with the vehemence in his voice. No, I won't let this destroy everything I've built. There has to be another way. Noah's eyes lit up with a spark of determination that was achingly familiar to Keanu. Maybe there is, he said slowly. What if we could discredit Foster, make him seem like a crackpot so that no one believes his story? Eleanor looked skeptical. How? He has documentation, lab reports. But does he have proof? Keanu interjected, catching on to Noah's train of thought. Real, irrefutable proof that we're, he trailed off, still unable to fully articulate the bizarre reality of their situation. Noah nodded eagerly. Exactly. All he has is his word and some paperwork. If we can cast doubt on his credibility, make it seem like he's just another conspiracy theorist. As they began to formulate a plan, Keanu felt a strange mix of emotions wash over him. Here he was, plotting with the son he never knew he had, sort of, and the woman who had kept this earth-shattering secret from him for 2 decades. And yet, he couldn't deny the odd sense of rightness that came with working alongside Noah. It was as if some long-dormant part of himself had suddenly awakened. Over the next few hours, they hashed out the details of their counterattack. They would need to move quickly to get ahead of Foster's book release. It would involve careful manipulation of the media, strategic leaks to discredit Foster, and a united front from all 3 of them. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cafe patio, Keanu realized they had been talking for hours. He checked his phone, seeing several missed calls from Scarlett. Guilt washed over him, as he remembered that he was supposed to be on his honeymoon. I need to go, he said, standing up abruptly. Scarlett, she's waiting for me. Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course, we'll set things in motion on our end, but Keanu... She reached out, grasping his hand. Thank you. For listening. For not hating us. For being willing to help. Keanu looked at her, then at Noah. Despite the chaos of the situation, he felt a strange sense of peace settling over him. We're in this together now, he said simply. As he prepared to leave, Noah stood as well. Keanu, he said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I know this is all complicated, but I meant what I said before. I'd like to get to know you. If you're still open to that. Keanu felt a lump form in his throat. He looked at this young man, this mirror image of his younger self, and saw not just the genetic connection, but the potential for a real relationship. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I'd like that too. With one last nod to Eleanor, Keanu headed back to his motorcycle. As he rode through the streets of Los Angeles, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. How would he explain all of this to Scarlett? How would they navigate the media storm that was sure to come? And most pressingly, how would this new knowledge change his understanding of himself, his past, and his future? When he arrived back at the hotel, Scarlett was waiting for him in their suite. One look at his face told her everything she needed to know. Oh, Keanu, she said softly, opening her arms to him. He fell into her embrace, feeling the tension of the day begin to melt away. As they sat together on the plush sofa, Keanu recounted everything he had learned. To her credit, Scarlett listened without interruption, her expression shifting from shock to disbelief to concern. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. So, what happens now? Keanu took a deep breath. Now, we fight. We protect what we have, what we've built together, and... He hesitated, then pressed on. And I get to know my son. If that's okay with you. Scarlett's eyes widened slightly at the word son, but she nodded slowly. Of course it's okay. He's a part of you, Keanu, a part of your life, and now he's a part of mine too. The relief Keanu felt at her words was overwhelming. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I love you, he murmured. I don't know what I'd do without you, she chuckled softly. Well, you're not going to find out. We're in this together, remember? For better or for worse. As they sat there holding each other in the growing darkness of the hotel room, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, the road ahead would be challenging. There would be difficult conversations, legal battles, media scrutiny. But he had Scarlett by his side, and now unexpectedly he had Noah too. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. True to their word, Eleanor and Noah set their plan in motion. Carefully placed rumors began to circulate about Dr. Foster's questionable research practices. Anonymous sources questioned the validity of his claims. By the time Foster announced his book release, the scientific community was already viewing him with skepticism. Keanu, for his part, threw himself into getting to know Noah. They met for coffee, went on motorcycle rides together, even had a few late-night gaming sessions. With each interaction, Keanu felt the bond between them growing stronger. It was strange and wonderful, getting to know this young man who was in many ways a reflection of himself. There were challenging moments, of course. The first time Noah called him Dad was both thrilling and terrifying, and explaining the situation to his closest friends and family members was an exercise in patience and understanding. But through it all, Scarlett remained his rock, offering unwavering support and love. As the weeks turned into months, the threat of Foster's revelations began to fade. His book, when it was finally released, was met with widespread skepticism and dismissal. A few fringe conspiracy theorists latched onto the story, but in the fast-paced world of celebrity gossip, it quickly became old news. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding, Keanu found himself sitting on the patio of his home, watching the sun set over the Hollywood Hills. Scarlett was inside, putting the finishing touches on dinner. Noah was due to arrive any minute for their weekly family meal, a tradition that had developed organically over time. As he sat there reflecting on the whirlwind his life had become, Keanu felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over him. Despite the shock and upheaval, despite the secrets and lies, he had gained something precious. A son, a deeper connection with Scarlett, and a new understanding of himself. The sound of a motorcycle pulling up the driveway broke through his reverie. Moments later, Noah appeared, a grin on his face that was so achingly familiar. "Hey, Dad," he called out, crossing the patio to join Keanu. "Hey, kid," Keanu replied, the term of endearment feeling natural now. "How was your day?" As Noah launched into a story about his latest audition, he had decided to try his hand at acting, much to Keanu's mixed pride and trepidation. Scarlett emerged from the house, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Dinner's ready, you two," she announced, smiling at the sight of them together. As they made their way inside, Keanu felt a surge of love for this unconventional family they had created. It wasn't what he had expected when he stood at that altar 6 months ago, but it was beautiful in its own way. Later that night, as he lay in bed with Scarlett curled up beside him, Keanu found himself thinking about the strange twists and turns his life had taken. From a struggling actor to an action movie icon, from a solitary figure to a husband and father, he had experienced more in his 59 years than most people do in a lifetime. "Penny for your thoughts," Scarlett murmured, her voice thick with sleep. Keanu smiled in the darkness. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," he replied, pulling her closer. "How sometimes the most unexpected turns in life can lead to the greatest joys." As he drifted off to sleep, Keanu felt a sense of peace settle over him. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, he knew he could face them. He had his wife, his son, and a newfound understanding of the complex tapestry of life. And really, what more could a man ask for? In the years that followed, Keanu's life continued to evolve in ways he never could have predicted. His relationship with Noah deepened, moving beyond the initial awkwardness into a genuine father-son bond. They worked together on several film projects, their on-screen chemistry undeniable. Scarlett, too, embraced her role as Noah's stepmother, offering guidance and support as he navigated the tricky waters of Hollywood. The three of them became a tight-knit unit, weathering the occasional media storm with grace and unity. Eleanor remained a part of their lives, though her relationship with Keanu was forever changed. They found a new equilibrium, bonded by their shared love for Noah and a mutual understanding of the complexities of their past. As for Dr. Foster, his attempts to reignite interest in his claims fell flat. The scientific community had moved on, and the public's fascination with celebrity. Gossip had found new targets. In the end, his groundbreaking discovery became little more than a footnote in the annals of fringe science. Keanu's career continued to flourish, with audiences and critics alike praising his evolving craft. But it was his personal life that brought him the most joy. Watching Noah grow into his own person, supporting Scarlett in her directorial endeavors, and finding a balance between his public persona and his private life. These were the things that truly mattered. As he approached his 60th birthday, Keanu Reeves looked back on the tumultuous events that had reshaped his world. The shock of discovery, the fear of exposure, the joy of connection, all of it had led him to this moment. And as he stood on the balcony of his home, surrounded by the family he never knew he needed, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life, he realized, was not about the destination, but about the journey, and what a journey it had been.